And gentlemen, welcome back to the 71st installment of the Primetime podcast here on Primetime with Taff and Phil. Welcome. It has been another documented series in the books. I'm glad I'm doing an episode after the last three games from yesterday because I'm very excited to get into all that. Right now it is 7:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've got a Toronto Raptors team going down 2-0 to what has been a strong starting performance from the Cleveland Cavaliers as they go on to go up 2-0 in the series with the likes of Donovan Mitchell and James Harden leading the way. There's a lot to get into to dissect in that series. And then two absolute heaters of games to follow up. We had the Atlanta Hawks pulling off a crazy comeback against the New York Knicks in the Garden to even up the series at one apiece. And then, of course, how can anybody... watching the Minnesota Timberwolves duke it out and battle with the Denver Nuggets. I saw the first quarter. It was 39-25, and for the Timberwolves to match that score exactly, it's just incredible. It's just an incredible... That was an incredible game as well. Watching watching a player like Rudy Gobert really lock in against Nikola Jokic was also incredibly impressive to watch. And then, of course, after that, we got to preview the three games tonight. Going on right now, starting, is Game 2 between the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. Can Tyrese Maxey and Paul George and company find a way to come back and even up this series against the Celtics, or will the Celtics begin to run away with it and take a commanding 2-0 lead? Same goes for the Portland Trail Blazers, the other 7 seed matching up against the other 2 seed, the San Antonio Spurs. Can they find a way to break through San Antonio? Can they find a way to get something done against Victor Wembanyama and company there? And then last but certainly not least, a banged-up Lakers team who is up 1-0 without Luka tonight, without Austin Reeves, Mr. AR-15 himself. And then will they be able to go up 2-0 against the Rockets, or will they finally be able to show some pride and look a little bit like last year's rendition and find a way? Will they be able to find a way to break through? That is the question everybody has today. Can the Houston Rockets, whether they have Kevin Durant or not, he's still day-to-day with a knee injury, did not have a confirmation as of right now, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If he is going to play, I guess we will find out as we get closer to that game. That being said, we've still got 3 games to recap, and we have 3 games to preview. So let's go ahead and start with the first game of yesterday, being the Cleveland Cavaliers taking control of the series against the Toronto Raptors. Raptors obviously down Emmanuel quickly. Brandon Ingram with a massive struggles just was not enough. First, let's talk the perspective of the Cavs. Obviously going up 2-0, even despite LeBron no longer being in Cleveland, and he's being out of Cleveland for a decade now, or getting close to it. It is still very much... The Cavs still have a foothold on the Toronto Raptors in the playoffs, and so far that has proven to be the case. The acquisition of James Harden and pairing him with Donovan Mitchell has been essentially seamless. To see what they came into in the last 2 or 3 months... It's really just been the last 2 months. From what there has been for between the two of them, they combined for 58 last night. I think it was 58, 12, and 9. It was the combined stat total between the two of them. They just are such effective scorers. Whether they're getting layups and though they're trying to either get free throws, whether they're trying to get layups, whether they're pulling up getting jumpers, whether they're pulling up from 3, they are 2 very dynamic and effective scorers. They are very similar in their play styles. they're just incredibly dynamic. And what we've seen from Cleveland is that, listen, Toronto, despite having decent defenders, I'm not going to say they're great, but they do have decent defensive work. They're just not, they don't match up well at all. And based on what we've seen from, I mean, I think it was they're also combined plus minus was, I think, plus 25, which is very good as well. And then when you factor in that Evan Mobley is going to go, I mean, I think it was 11 for 13 or like 10 for 12 for like 25 points. I mean, that there's no stop. That's just a very effective big three. Two very dynamic scorers, and then a very good defensive player who a lot of people had huge expectations for coming into this year, hadn't lived up to them the majority of the regular season, and now living up to that in the most important spot at the beginning of these playoffs. If he can continue to live up to that expectation of I can put up points, I can be a good defender, I can do all of these things. Yeah, Evan Mobley and just the Cavs in general are going to be very scary for whoever they have to play next. If Detroit, and again, remember, Detroit's already got their hands surprisingly full against against all of a sudden an out of nowhere kind of Orlando team that a lot of people had basically written off. If I'm looking at it from that perspective, I mean, my goodness, right? That there is a new level. And even if Detroit makes it out, and I think they will against Orlando, I don't think they'll have an issue. But if they make it out and they have to play Cleveland, they still have the same problem of Cleveland has a second scorer in the form of Harden past Mitchell that the Pistons just don't have. And to be honest, I don't know if they have enough. They don't have enough strong points on defense. Like, Asur Thompson and Jalen Duren are great, but if you are ever able to get some sort of pick and roll going and have Duncan Robinson covering one of these guys, lights, curtains, it's gonna be a nightmare. And I mean, hats off to Cleveland. They look very good. You could argue they are the first or second strongest team in the East right now from what you've seen in the first. Obviously, again, the Raptors being down quickly certainly doesn't help. But you got to give credit where credit is due, both to Harden and Mitchell, and especially to Evan Mobley for what he's doing. So hats off to the Cavs. From that perspective, Cleveland has looked incredible. From the other perspective, of course, there is the failure of the Toronto Raptors to really get much going. Game 1 wasn't very good. RJ Barrett had way too many turnovers, and now we get into Game 2, where not having quickly your starting point guard has mattered. I mean, what is it? Jamal Shed has had to play 38 minutes. That's nearly double what he averages in the regular season. I believe it's in like the low 20s, low 20s, like 21, 22 minutes a game, versus when you're looking at having to, like, you kind of need quickly. You're kind of out of that. You don't really have a choice if you're not going to be playing Emmanuel. If you're not playing Emmanuel, that's a huge problem, and him not. I mean, is he going to be back for Game 3? You would hope they will have enough rest. But that's going to be their biggest shot. And one of the big things that bothers me a little bit, especially when you talk about the Toronto Raptors and their superstar in comparison to someone like Mitchell, Brandon Ingram's supposed to be the most reliable guy on that team. And even after Game 1, Brandon Ingram comes out, says, I think he only had like 9 shots in their first game. He comes out and says, I need to have more than 9 shots if we're going to win the game. Well, Game 2, he had 15 shots and put up 7 points, and they lost. So at what point, Brandon Ingram just has to play better. For someone who's supposed to be one of their most reliable players and one of the most consistent scorers, the fact that BI puts up another not great game, if that's going to be the constant and the regular, what else to even say? Like, if that's going to be the regular output for the rest of the series, then the series might as well be a sweep. I understand not having a ball, like your starting point guard, not having your main distributor hurts, and you have to go to Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett for some of this stuff. But it's not enough. It's too much to put on someone like Jamal Shed, for someone who doesn't play nearly as many minutes, for someone who's not the starting point guard. it's not going to go over well. And it hasn't gone over well in this last game. It hasn't gone over well in game 1. If Toronto wants to have any shot, they need to find a way to get healthy. They need Emmanuel quickly to come back and play. And that's the only chance, because a game 3, I mean, especially when you're down 2-0 and like especially in this context, game 3 is a must win. You don't win game 3, it's over. There's just nothing that can be done at that point. And you can feel it. You can feel it now. Nothing can be done. There's nothing. There's just nothing that can be done about it at this point if they don't find a way to win game 3. And to be honest, previewing it, looking ahead, I don't think they do. I think the Cavs are just on. I think what I'm seeing from the Cavs, I think this is the scariest I've seen them. And obviously, they're playing Toronto. That they're not coming out as like a 1 seed against an 8. This is probably the scariest they've been with Mitchell in Cleveland. That's what I would say. I think this team has a very, very real chance to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, matching up against, I would presume, Boston. Still could be New York. Maybe if Atlanta makes an incredible run, but I don't want to write off Detroit too early, but that's just how impressive this Cleveland Cavaliers team looks. I mean, it's incredible. It's 7-13 right now. Let me just check. I know 76ers. Let me take a look here. 76ers just about to tip off. Celtics get the first points there. Headset dies. Classic. Oh, yeah. Celtics already got the first 3 of the game. And, yeah, pretty much, I mean, if you're not pretty clear, I think that the Celtics are going to win that one. But, of course, we'll get into the previews that when we get there. Probably could have done that at the beginning of the episode. But you know what? That's not how I roll. And that's not how I'm going to roll today. But Cavs are going to have taken control of the series. I kind of feel like the series is much closer to done than it is to being competitive, but we will see where it goes moving forward. Secondly, now we get to the major headline, the main topic of the video. You see it. How did the Knicks choke to the Hawks and CJ McCollum? A lot of things to say about this game. A couple things in general regarding this. Number one, the CJ McCollum villain storyline was very interesting. I've heard a lot of takes on both sides where it almost seems like I've heard people saying it feels forced by like the announcers at New York. I kind of disagree. The entirety of the Knicks stadium was not happy with CJ McCollum, especially after the comments he made in Game 1, where Brunson gets kicked in the nuts, and he says he's always putting on a performance, like a Broadway performance. I think you just kind of need to. I don't know. I think Knicks fans will always take stuff like this incredibly personally. I think the Knicks team will always generally take stuff like this incredibly personally, more so than I think any other player or fan base ever. But I mean, that's just my opinion. But that's what I feel. I think you can argue, yeah, CJ kind of has sort of played into a villain role a little bit, but I really don't. Like, are we really going to go and like, is it everybody that just like ever has a slight disrespect towards New York? There's always a slight amount of disrespect, like, automatically grants them to be a villain. Man, maybe you guys just aren't as likable as you think. Like, I think that's what it is. I just don't think. I mean, and that's someone who's lived in New York his whole life, like New York State, and been living in the city before. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. But regardless, New York and Atlanta played in really a clash. For multiple times, it looked like New York was getting set to pull away with it. And Atlanta just kind of hung around. I think there were 2 stretches where Atlanta was able to get back into it, keep it close, and then New York tried to pull away again. Then Atlanta comes back in, keeps it close, and then just got a couple different nice looks and was able to go in and get a very narrow win. The one thing that I think everybody watched that was so confusing was because no one really thought, at least I didn't think the Knicks called a timeout with 10 seconds left. I don't really know why they, I didn't notice it. Obviously, I don't think a lot of other people noticed it. As people were in the building saying they didn't have a timeout, which, I mean, kind of would make sense. They would be a little bit more aware of that situation. But I didn't even really notice when they called the second timeout, and then with 10 seconds to go, I mean, shoot, to not have the timeout there was brutal. But and also just in general at the end, I'm a little shocked Mccollum pulls up there. I would have just taken it. I would have taken it all the way and try to get a foul, because if I'm Mccollum, that's just not a shot I'm taking. I'm not taking a contested two. I'd rather take maybe a contested layup, try to draw a foul in that position and try to win the game that way. But I get it. You know, it's a quick reaction, and I always love Mccollum, a former son of mine that I do miss dearly. But it just was a very, it felt like an awkward kind of, I don't know, janky shot selection at that moment in that spot. Just didn't feel good the second he started pulling up for it. I said, it's not going in. And it's a problem. It's a real problem there in that situation. So definitely not what you would have been expecting. Definitely not the best situation there. But hey, it kind of is what it is at that point, and there's only, I would say, generally speaking, just at that point, there's only so much you can do about it. And now New York's got to go to Atlanta to play in a Game 3. Now, for the rest of the series, this is not just for this game, but for the rest of this series in general, starting with the biggest reason why Atlanta won this game, and New York Knicks fans, not even that Knicks fans won't like what I'm about to say. I think they're going to misconstrue what I'm about to say. But Jalen Brunson down the stretch defensively is just straight up, is just too much of a liability. From what you watched down the stretch, if they had Brunson one-on-one, whether it was, I think late, it was Kuminga in a transition, or whether it was McCollum, right? No matter who it was, that's the matchup they wanted. They wanted matched up against Brunson. And to be honest, it makes sense. OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are lanky and very good defenders. Anunoby's athleticism helps incredibly with that. Pat's just overall a big, has always been a very underrated defender. Sometimes doesn't always live up to it, but especially in these playoffs, especially what we saw last year, he has lived up to being that guy defensively. And then, I mean, where else? It just feels at that point like, yeah, Brunson kind of feels like a little bit of a liability. I mean, Josh Hart's also like a jackknife. He plays solid defense as well, very much a hustle guy. The issue is Brunson kind of gets exposed, and it's happened multiple times in these late games against these teams in the playoffs, and it happened Monday. It happened Monday night against Atlanta. It happened again. It happened with McCollum multiple times. It happened with Kuminga on a huge basket, right? It's just over and over again. Brunson has played late. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to do one thing, really. They're going to get him on the on-ball defender. If that means that if it's the guy he's already covering, or if it's trying to get a little pick set up. So, yeah, Brunson, you have to play the on-ball defender. Too bad, right? You have to play the ball. They always want him to play the ball, and that's kind of the issue, is that if Brunson, and again, Brunson always plays fairly well, but at a certain point, he's not like a do-it-all player, and very few players are. But he's not going to be incredibly great defensively late in games. He'll be incredibly clutch. He's proven that, but he's just not a great defender. And the Hawks took advantage of it. The Hawks, that's where they went. That's where they went in the fourth. That's where they went late. They went after him on multiple situations. And then the other thing that they attacked the Knicks pick and roll. The Knicks couldn't stop the pick and roll the entire game. More specifically, the entirety of the fourth quarter. The Knicks couldn't stop the pick and roll the entirety of the fourth quarter. Mitchell Robinson was out of position on one of the, I think it was either the Okonkwo or was it Kuminga who dunks it? Like they had a quick little pick and roll. It was either Okonkwo or Kuminga gets out and then jams it because Mitchell Robinson stays defending the ball with everybody else. He's supposed to drop back into the paint. He never does. So that was a big issue there. And it was an issue late in the game. And if New York wants to actually, win the game, that's one of their biggest flaws defensively that they couldn't figure out late and is a huge reason as to why they lost. And I think, now listen, I still think the series goes to 7. Don't get me wrong. But I also, if you want it to go to 7, you've got to get locked in on the defense on the pick and roll. And you need to find a solution to Jaylen Brown. You need to find a solution to Jalen Brunson's inability to guard late in games. Like, it's a mismatch. They exploit it multiple times. I mean, give credit to Atlanta. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, my player of the day, had a huge game. Just getting steals and blocks. He was not great offensively, but defensively, he came up massive in a lot of big moments. And you got to give him credit there. You got to give him credit for those moments. I mean, that's not easy to do. The other two big things that came out of this game, Knicks rebounding was actually very impressive. They dominated Atlanta, who I want to say is one of the better rebounding teams overall in the league. I think they were like 4th. Knicks dominated the offensive glass of that game. There was one moment where they straight up, Atlanta was forced to tip a ball in based on what I was seeing. So, that was incredibly impressive to watch. Oh, hey, hold on. Who's this guy? Oh my gosh. Welcome in. One second. I just gotta. Supposed to be. Well, welcome in. You know what? We'll give him one more applause because I didn't hear the first two. So, welcome in, TapSmith5452, saying it was Mike Brown's fault and Mikal Bridges had a pussy moment. Yeah, I agree. Mikal Bridges had a terrible shot at the end. But again, I think a huge part of this was down the stretch. Jalen Brunson got absolutely attacked by McCollum. And by CJ was one, and then late in transition, they had your boy Jonathan Kuminga coming in on transition and getting around him like he was super easy to get around. Like, Jalen Brunson is a great offensive player, and he's incredibly clutch. But if you're going to look at the defensive weakness on that team down the stretch, late in the game, he's that. You don't really want to go after Cat or even Mitch if he's on the court, or OG Anunoby or Bridges. Brunson's the weakest link defensively for the New York Knicks, and the Hawks attacked it multiple instances. Whether he was the on-ball defender, they went right at it, and if he wasn't, they set up picks to get him to be the on-ball defender and then have McCollum attack. And that's what they did. And the scary part, and not the scary part necessarily, because I still think the Knicks will win the series. However, if Jalen Johnson starts actually playing like he's the best player on the team, as opposed to CJ, and then CJ keeps doing what he's doing, then all of a sudden you have a recipe for disaster, because now you've got two dynamic players who are putting up points. All of a sudden, the momentum starts to shift, and to go in and win is going to be a big deal. And then finally, the real, I think, culmination headline, outside of just them attacking Brunson, the Knicks struggles in the pick and roll, the headline that's always been the issue, the headline that was the issue last year and the year before that and the year before that, the Knicks bench. The Knicks bench, and I was reading a couple articles about this that kind of describe how Brunson and Cat work. The way they work is that they're two very good, they're star players. Obviously, you want your stars on the court. And in theory, if you're the New York Knicks, you could set up a rotation where at least one of them is on the court at all times. However, that's kind of lame because you want your two star players to be playing together and getting minutes together because that's when they're the most effective. So obviously, Mike Brown has not staggered the minutes for Brunson and Cat, meaning there are going to be stretches where Brunson and Cat are not on the court at all. So it is vital that the Knicks bench steps up in those minutes when they are not on the floor. I think combined in game 2, it was Shamet, Alvarado and Deuce were 0 for 7. That's big. That's huge, especially when you consider in those minutes that you need your bench to get something. And their bench was able to play well enough in game 1 for when Brunson and Cat were off the court that they were actually up a point. So when they were off the court, Knicks were +1. But now that they were off the court, you had 3 of your critical bench players who have played well. Alvarado's been an excellent hustle player. I've had so many Knicks fans talking to me about Landry Shamet. And then you've got Deuce, who, I've heard for the last 3-4 years, everybody loves Deuce. Those are the moments where they need to score. They cannot allow the time that Brunson and Cat will be off the court to be the reason that they're losing games. Because to go now into Atlanta, you have to get one. You have to go into Atlanta and get one, and I think that they will. They could even get both realistically. But overall, and especially in, say, like, forget even just Atlanta, if presuming they win the series, if going up against like a Celtics team if they had to, if a Cavs team that they might have to, those are going to be vital minutes that they cannot let themselves get blown out of the water. If they need to be able to hold water. They don't need to even be up in those situations, but they need to be able to go in and win those minutes and at least hold the water and not let the ship break apart in those minutes. If they can do that, then that will solve their problems. And they've done work to improve their bench. Like, they went out and got Jordan Clarkson, right? They traded for Alvarado. But if that's what your bench is going to produce, then you're probably going to lose. That is the truth. That is the Philip White dropping the truth nuke, but that's going to be the reality. I see Tasmith saying, wahoo! And yeah. Let's see. The Knicks are the better team. For the first 42 minutes of the game, the Knicks looked leagues above the Hawks, like the far more put-together team. We missed Deuce a lot last game. Yes, they're definitely the more complete team. I don't think there were 2 real stretches, especially early. I want to say in the first quarter, either late first or early second, New York got out to a lead and just couldn't, like, Atlanta kept pushing that gas. And there were so many moments and instances where New York could have pulled away. Like, New York could have gone out and gone up, 13, 15, and instead they allowed Atlanta to creep in and cut it to like 8 or 7. That's where the issues lie. That's where they fell in, and not being able to make those gaps and pushes when their stars were on the court as well, ended up playing a huge, kind of broke down ultimately. It just didn't ultimately stay. And if they were able to, again, if they keep those leads, they're able to actually push the lead forward. Because again, down the stretch, they didn't score in the last, I think it was for like 3 or 4 minutes. It was like 192? And then just there was no scoring at one point. Like the Hawks went on a 9-0 run, and that happened over like 3 minutes, which is crazy. Yeah, the defensive collapse was just brutal. That 12-4 run when we started 192 was brutal. Take Brunson off the court if you need to. That's the danger, right? Taking Brunson off the court is one thing, and obviously being a defensive liability. At the same time, it's very hard to take him off the court in those positions because you know that he's a clutch player who can still get you those buckets if you need to take a lead, right? So it's very hard because honestly, I'm going to be honest, Brunson is the person you do not want to defend the other team's player, but at the same time, the absolute best player to have the ball in his hands to take the shot late, right? So it's very difficult to balance that overall offense late games because, again, pretty much you'd rather have almost any other player play defense, as crazy as it is, I would think. I mean, not everybody, but I mean, I would argue I would prefer Alvarado defending on the last play of the game than I would Brunson. I would prefer Bridges and Anunoby defending on the last play than I would Brunson. Or even Cat and Mitch. The only guys I maybe wouldn't allow is like Shamet. Maybe I wouldn't even allow, maybe not Shamet, Deuce, but I mean, for the most part, Brunson is the middle tier of defender for the Knicks specifically. Like, if you're talking just being that kind of defender. And you got to give credit to Atlanta where credit's due, man. Nickeil Alexander-Walker getting a late steal as well. He was not great offensively, but he was incredible defensively. Got to give credit to Atlanta where it's due. They played a very impressive game. They did not let up. They did what they needed to do. They got their steals. They made their plays. And now, guess what? I mean, going back to Atlanta, and again, I think this is still a Knicks, probably a Knicks in 7 now. I may have just said Knicks in 6 if they won game 2, but I think right now it's looking like kind of a Knicks in 7 series. We'd have to see, but I just don't. I don't know, man. It really depends on what Jalen Johnson can do the rest of the series. If he starts to play better, I think it could get into a position where the Knicks could be in genuine trouble. But I will never, and I won't also understand why Mikal Bridges just doesn't drive to the basket. I think that's really where they need to be. I think that's where they need to be. Let's see. True, hindsight's 2020. But if we knew we were gonna have the scoring drought we had, throw Alvarado or Deuce in Brunson's place defensively. True, but I think the benefit of having Brunson in does almost outweigh the defense. As bad as it is, I think they just need to find a better way to play those defensive situations. Like, they just can't have the Hawks constantly switch on to Brunson every single time. They need to have a game plan for, all right, if they're going to try to switch on to Brunson, how do we prevent them from doing that? Or how do we put ourselves in a position where we can give Brunson help without, taking away and leaving somebody open? I think that's a better game plan than trying to it really, again, there's no real way to go about it. You just kind of have to choose. You pick your poison, and you live with the decision. But I think it's very hard to remove Brunson off the court late game in any close game like that. NAW is going bananas. CJ McCollum is a freaking jerk, though. Knicks need to win in 5. Is 7? First of all, need to win in 5. Need to win in 5 if they intend to beat the Celtics. Which, again, they can win in 5 or not. I got to be honest. I don't think they do. Because I just watched the Celtics, saw what they did against the 76ers. Jalen Brown, and even I'll check the score right now because I know that game is going on. We're looking at the Celtics. Yeah, they're already up 10. I mean, they're gonna cook them. Like, all due respect, I think Celtics matchup. I think Celtics are so much better than they were last year. I think Jason Tatum is so incredibly healthy, and Jalen Brown didn't even have a good game 1, and yet they hung 30 on him. Like, I just think the position Boston is in. Boston just feels like somehow a better team than they were last year, and the Knicks don't feel like they've made the same exact steps that they need to, and they still feel like they're just too not enough. That's where I'm at. I just don't think this is too much not enough. And CJ's a nice guy. He's got a wife and kids, man. CJ McCollum's a nice guy. He has a wife and kids. Yeah, you know this? You know this about CJ? He's a nice guy. He's got a wife and kids. It's he's chill. He's a chill little fella. Knicks need to win in 5. If they don't, this ish is cooked because the C's are winning in 4 or 5-2. I'd be kind of shocked if the Sixers get one. And I don't think the Celtics are necessarily better than last year. They're just a machine. They're consistent. The Knicks aren't, and that's the problem. I guess that is fair. I don't know, man. I think the Celtics, especially with who was the... Hold on, I'm gonna forget because now I have to pull up the Celtics roster. But they are surprisingly they kind of know what they doing. In all disrespect, it was Neemias Queta. I mean, for their center position, he's kind of a beast. 2021 second round pick out of Sacramento. I mean, he's been good for Boston. That's been a huge upgrade for them. Obviously, Tatum and Brown. You still have Derek White. I mean, Derek White arguably is probably taking a step back. But, dude, Jordan Walsh as well been underrated players. I mean, Jordan Walsh in Game 1, like, just off the jump is like, yeah, Jordan Walsh is just going to do stuff, I guess. Game 1, all right, let's go. I think especially, just being, and like you said, being a well-oiled machine, it's too, and again, remember, and people, again, Knicks beat them in the series last year, and I understand that. But remember what the Knicks had to do to beat them in that series? They had to come back from 20 points down 2 separate times. I don't think Boston is going to put themselves in those positions again. Yes, New York can come back in those positions, but to expect to go in there and start slow and crawl your way back against a Boston team that I think is definitely very much in a strong position with how healthy Tatum is, it's going to be a tough one. So maybe they do need to win in 5, but I just don't see the Knicks beating this Hawks team in 5, not after last night. Not after last night, I think especially because you'd have to, in order to win in 5, you got to win the next 3. You're going to win both in Atlanta? It's just going to be a tough one to do. It's going to be a tough one to pull off, and I just don't see it. I think it's closer to 7 than anything else. I think it is a 7-game series, but the Knicks will take it and move on. Because, I mean, there's only so far the power of friendship can take the Hawks, and it's to 7 games against the Knicks. That's about where it takes them. That's the difference between Mike Brown and Thibs. The expectation with Brown is we don't go down by 20, but Bro has been mid. Sure, but say what you want about Thibs. Thibs didn't win there. I think if Mike Brown goes down by 20, then it's a real problem. Fair, but I don't know. I think the main issue with the Knicks, some of those issues still have come through this year. I mean, even in just this playoff game. I think the same issues with certain rotational minutes. I think the same issue with bench scoring. I mean, and even then, like, it comes down to can they? The Knicks will still have a lot of like advantages even after losing that game. Like the Knicks still dominated offensive rebounds. Like they outclassed in a lot of spots on the offensive glass, which is something that Atlanta typically is pretty good at overall. Knicks were able to do what they were able to do against them. And the other thing, Knicks were not good from the stripe. I mean, they missed, I think, 10 free throws, and I think Mitchell Robinson only missed 1 of them. Like, they had 9 other missed free throws, and none of them were Mitch. So, yeah. Actually, the only one he missed is the one I made $1 off of last night. So there you go. I made $1 off one Mitchell Robinson, $2 technically. Made $2 off of one Mitchell Robinson missed free throw. I'm crazy with it. I'm just crazy with it. Okay, anyway, the Knicks will have to find a way to bounce back. I mean, if the Hawks at any point genuinely look better than the Knicks, I'd agree. But like, we're the better team. Hawks got hot. We got cold at the wrong moment. Atlanta was not scary to the last 6 minutes. That's all that matters, right? Like, if they're only scary in the last 6 minutes, especially if they can keep it close, then yeah. And I mean, remember, CJ McCollum is like their second. Remember, CJ McCollum is as crazy as is probably their second best scorer. That's the issue. If Jalen Johnson turns it on, then we are looking at a Hawks team that does all of a sudden get a little bit scary, get a little bit intense, get a little bit And I feel you never know. That's the thing. I feel like, especially a lot in these series, you don't really realize someone's scary until like you really like if Atlanta. Like, what needs to happen is the Knicks would need to win Game 3, right? For them to, I think, if the Knicks lose Game 3, regardless of the outcome of the series, I would argue that the Knicks don't make it by the Celtics. That would be my take. If they lose in Atlanta for Game 1, or the first game in Atlanta, then now you're already battling uphill. We'll see. Obviously, the Knicks are much more talented than the Hawks in general. That's a very clear and obvious statement. That being said, they cannot get the same. Well, first of all, they need more production from their bench if they want to be able to go into Atlanta and win. That's number one. The second big thing is they cannot allow Jalen Brunson to get mogged on the way the Hawks mogged on him late in the game. They just can't allow it. They have to find a way to either put in some other defender, or they have to find a way to play defense in a way where Atlanta doesn't constantly have the main guy with the ball and having Brunson play on-ball defense. It doesn't work. And it was a huge reason why Atlanta was even able to get that run when it was 192. It was the main reason they were able to get to that point. And it was just like, what are we going to do at a certain point? What are we going to do? Jay, welcome in. I see you there. I'm getting a nice round of applause from the board, Jay. Knicks lose. He says Knicks lose, new head coach incoming, and the Nova Knicks experiment over. Oh my gosh! If the Knicks lose to they wouldn't fire Mike Brown after just the loss. I think it would be incredibly disappointing, and they might make a big move, but I don't know if they'd move off Mike Brown immediately. That would be quite the overreaction, I would think. As much as I never really fully bought into the Thibs firing. I don't think it changes anything. I don't think it changes that much. Well, Tav Smith says, well, yeah, it could get ugly if the Knicks drop Game 3. If the Knicks want to make the Eastern Conference Finals at all, they need to win in 5 because the Celtics are going to get that rest. Knicks are definitely in a rock and a hard place with the coaching sitch. If we don't make the Eastern Conference Finals, you can't really fire the guy. Yeah, that's kind of where you're in a tough spot. But again, that's the expectation, right? And that's why I felt it was kind of very bizarre to fire Thibs, just because whatever coach you bring in has wildly high expectations, and if you don't meet them, it's not like you can make a different move. I'll see Jay saying it's New York overreaction. It's New York overreactions are a must. Yeah, man. I mean, the next New York coach fire. Let's all be honest, it's probably Aaron Glenn, but. It's probably the Jets guy. Let's be honest, guys. It's got to be them. All right. I got my Knicks talk out. I got it all out. We could chat about it in the comments. I'll keep responding to it. But I gotta move on to the T-Wolves series. The T-Wolves and the Nuggets looked. I gotta say this. I went into bed. I went upstairs. I was watching with some boys. I was like, guys, I'm tired. I gotta go get some eep. And then I stayed in bed watching this game, and I'm so glad I stayed in bed watching this game. This game, I watched the first quarter. I was like, all right, I should go to bed. Nuggets somehow had 3-4 point plays in 2 minutes. It was absurd. You had Tim Hardaway Jr. just spazzing out on the ground like crazy. And then you had the rest of this game. First quarter, 39-24 Nuggets. Then the Timberwolves respond with a 39-25 second quarter to keep the game tied. And then the second half, I don't think anybody ever trailed by more than 6. I mean, it was blow for blow, pound for pound, bing for bang, bong for bong. And what was crazy is that I remember watching the game, and then I went back while I was at work checking out some of the highlights, and I was like, you know what? The craziest thing about watching this game was that Rudy Gobert fouling early was so good because the Timberwolves could just run their offense early and then play Rudy late on defense against Jokic, and it worked to a T. And it was huge. It was huge late in the game to be able to have Rudy do what he was doing against Jokic. He's always matched up with him incredibly well. But for what he was I mean, my goodness, right? How that matchup went, I mean, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal work and incredible stuff. And it was just fun to watch. It was just overall, again, coming in, this series was already going to be the best series. I thought coming into the first round, I thought the idea of the matchup between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, they've always seemed to match up very well in the playoffs. It's always a very entertaining series. And, it was again. And all of a sudden, you have the Timberwolves who have surprisingly now, I think, well, not surprising, but definitely feel like they have a more cohesive, formative roster. You've got Jaden McDaniels, DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, and of course Ant. You have an incredible roster. Whereas if you look at the Nuggets, Jokic is good. You have Jamal Murray. But then after that, it becomes very difficult to determine who's going to step up on any given night. Aaron Gordon's a very good defensive player. But past that, with guys like Christian Braun and even my boy Cam Johnson, who I love, they just are very difficult to match up overall in a long-term series. I think it makes it very difficult to do. Oof. But I thought this series is very very fun. The only issue I have is that it's a late series. Now that it's this it's on at 10:30 and staying up past then is difficult. But my gosh, I think this is going to continue to be the best series in round one by far. I think guaranteed. Of all the series, I think this one is basically guaranteed to go to 7. I'm incredibly excited to see where it goes. And I really don't know. It could really go either way. I'm still leaning Nuggets by like a hair, but it could really go either way. It could go either way between the Timberwolves and Denver. I could really flip a coin. It's like 51-49% of where I'm leaning right now. But I'm excited to see more of it, and hopefully it's on a little earlier. I know it's out on the west and like the middle time zones, but I want this series to be on a little earlier, so I'm not like scrounging around for scraps of sleep by the end of it. Let me see. Let's check these comments. Task comments in. What makes me sad is we never really looked good for more than a month like we did with Thibs. Thibs had us consistent. I thought Brown would have the same. Brown gets fired before Glenn. Pray and pray. Really? I don't know if all that's gonna happen. I don't know if Mike Brown gets fired before Aaron Glenn. That would be a crazy one for that to happen. And then Taft's retiring to watch Invincible. Talk to you later, Philip White. Lakers later. Lakers later. Oh yeah, the Lakers game later tonight. We'll have to see with the Lakers. I'll be previewing all 3 games, and then we also got Marcus here as well. Marcus, how you doing, boss? Let's see you the flag. Jordan's son, he don't claim Ant-Man gonna lead the Wolves to the dub. I mean, yeah, to lead the Wolves to the dub last night. I think he definitely can. I just the benefits of a home game 7, I think, can't be understated there. But with that roster, that roster is a very deep roster, at least in comparison to Denver's, and is very exciting. And then at the end of the game, the one issue for Denver just down the stretch was too much indecisiveness, especially with I think Jokic could have tried for a shot, and instead he passes it to Braun, and it looks like it skids off one of the Timberwolves, and that kind of allows it gets to Braun, but it kind of allows the Wolves to rally and stop him. And then Jamal Murray pulling up for 2 when you needed 3 was just a weird choice as well. So it felt like a weird and really faulty decision making down the stretch for the Nuggets that ultimately did him in. But it's gonna be a great rest of that series. I'm incredibly excited for that. So very excited. And then finally, with those 3 in the books, let me also, it's 7:49 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to get into tonight's games. Let me start first off with Boston. Okay, Philadelphia cut it to within 4. It's 9 minutes and 20 seconds to go in the second. The 76ers cut it to within 4 against the Celtics. Looks like a Vucevic personal foul, so Andre Drummond will be at the line. But we'll have to see where... Marcus saying rigged, my man. DraftKings rigged it. Really? DraftKings would rig it? Wow, they're going to... A lot of money is going to be made off Celtics bettors tonight, perhaps. If somehow the 76ers can go in and snatch game 2. I mean, I'm here for it. I'm always excited to see the playoffs get shaken up. And listen, the longer series can go, the closer we can get to a game 7 is always much nicer. So that's always the entertaining part there. Oh, shoot. I didn't even have... Why do I have a picture of... Wait a minute. This isn't even the one I wanted. Did I not grab a picture for this? I must not have. I must have kept the same one. Oops. I kept the same one from when it was Paulo and... Whatever. We can... You know what? I can change this. Hold on. There's definitely a better option. Where is it? Oh, you know what? Sure, we'll just use this Luke Kennard shot. We'll just use Mr. Luke Kennard because the Rockets in the... Alright, there we go. Look at that. We'll use Mr. Luke. Anyway, tonight's games. 76ers, Celtics. Right now, that game is already in the second quarter. You can check it out right now on wherever you can pretty much watch TV. That game is going on right now. I will say this. I would like to see the 76ers pull it off. But to be honest... I do think Boston is good. This game is just going to be close, but I think the Celtics are just going to win. It's a little too much. I think the Celtics overall are a little too much to handle against the very good. It's just a lot to deal with. Jay saying the Sengun off-centered was a masterpiece. Oh, I appreciate it, Jay. Thank you very much. Okay, never mind. 76ers are 1. Who is going off right now? Maxey is 4 for 10. Is it Paul George? 4 or 6 for 9 points? Wow. Oh, Quentin Grimes 6 points off the bench. No one's really... Oh, Derek White's struggling. Just 1 of 6. Huh. Peyton Pritchard also not having a good game so far. 0 for 4. Jason Tatum still looks good as normal. Wow, this game's gonna be interesting. Interestingly, pretty close. Anyone dominate? Huh? Bizarre. How bizarre. Well, Tatum with 2 turnovers doesn't help either. Wow. Jeez, Jordan Walsh just, I don't know. I guess Jordan Walsh in his 3 minutes was a bum. Yeah, I don't. It's gonna be an interesting one. I still will have the Celtics by like probably 8. I still think they'll close it out in this game. Just because the idea of just who Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been as a duo is very hard to compete with. So I think that's going to be one of the bigger issues. So I'm going to say the Celtics will close it out against the 76ers tonight. The other 2 games, Spurs Trailblazers. That's going to be a fun one. It's always pretty fun, I think, just in general with, seeing Wemby. I think the more important thing for Portland is how are they going to score? Because the main thing in game 1 was Portland did not want to play in the paint with Wemby, and I don't blame them. Nobody really wants to play in that area. The problem is if you're going to do that, if you're going to play that game, you got to knock down your threes, and they just weren't knocking down enough of them in game 1 to really be able to keep pace. So you either have to make a decision. You either want to test the waters, go into the paint, battle it out with Wembanyama, get some action with Donovan Clingan, and try to play well there, or your other option is to do what you did game 1, lob the threes, and hope you make more of them. The reality is I think both aren't great options. If I'm being honest, I try to get Klingon some options. I think Donovan Klingan's a very good center. He's been a very good rebounder all year. I would prefer that option because at the very least you can start to kind of have some sort of competition, sort of at least get in the face of Wemby, as opposed to just trying to sit back and shoot threes all game and hoping you get hot. I think it's better to try and contest Wemby a little bit. Try to at least contest Wemby before you decide it's time to start hacking up threes. Let me check comments real quick. With Jay saying, with Kerr not expected to return, is it time for Nick Kerr to step up and lead the team? You know what? Maybe, Jay. Maybe it's time for Nick to get on up there and lead the Golden State Warriors victory. Honestly, if we're being realistic, though, about coaches, I have no idea who's going to coach that Warriors team. Because especially with guys like Draymond, with Draymond probably gone, right? You presume Draymond's gone. You presume... they'll probably hold on to Steph, right? You would presume Steph would want to close out his career there. At this point, I don't know if Steph goes anywhere else. I think it's very hard to sell that to Steph. And I think it's very hard to sell that to the Golden State audience in general. I don't really know. And they have to move off a lot of guys. Like Jimmy Butler's coming off an ACL. Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford are going to be just collecting dirt somewhere. At some point, you can't keep running it back with this old man team and be okay making a 10 seed. You just can't. I think that's got to be like a complete teardown, a complete strip out of all the polls. And I think that's why Steve Kerr's probably leaving, because I don't think he wants to be a part of that rebuild. I just don't think it's... And I can kind of see it. I can kind of understand why. Nick led the Santa Cruz Warriors to the semifinals of the G League playoffs. Also, out of the loop here, does Taco Fall still get some run on this Celtics team? I don't think so. Where is Taco? I kind of miss him. Is he still on, G League Celtics? No, he's on the New Zealand Breakers. What? Wait, no, he's not. Oh, wait, he was on the New Zealand Breakers. He's on the Ningbo Rockets. He's in the Chinese Basketball Association. Can we get a Ningbo Rockets Taco Fall jersey? I might have to get some really niche jerseys and just wear them around, because that would be so fun to have. I'm gonna see if I can order that. I'm gonna see if I can grab that. That would be sick to have. But no, I don't think it's Celtics anymore. What was the last team he played on? I don't even... Was it Celtics, or did he get to go play somewhere else? And that was in 20... that's still now. Before then... Oh, it was the Cavs. Yeah, he was on the Cavs for a little bit. The Maine Red Claws, the Cleveland Charge, and those are the G League teams. Damn, out of the league already. The CBA... Wait, he led the Chinese Basketball Association in blocks. So there's that. He led the league in blocks in 2023 with the Nanjing Monkey Kings, based in Nanjing, Jiangsu, the South Division of the Chinese Basketball Association. How about that? Look at that, man. We got a Hall of Fame CBA player in Taco Fall. Here he comes. I am still hyped. I pulled a Taco Fall auto. That's awesome. Jay, I'm gonna have to start gambling a little bit and just getting cards. I'm just gonna find some card packs and say, hey, I'll trade you a cigarette for some cards for one pack. Just go into card shops. Anyway, I think if Portland can maybe shoot their threes, they can maybe win that game. But I'm still gonna take San Antonio in game 2. Last game I want to get into though before I head out and make some food and grab myself a beer is none other than Lakers Rockets. I had to think for a sec. Lakers Rockets. Let me say this. The fact of the matter, and I don't think I've emphasized how bad it was yesterday. The fact that the Lakers won against the Houston Rockets, and I don't care if the Rockets, I get it. Rockets didn't have KD, knee contusion. Doesn't matter. They should not have lost the game when Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves are both out. No excuse. If they lose tonight and fall down 2-0 when the Lakers don't have their 2 best players, curtains. This Rockets team has no pride. There's no shot the Rockets win the series. It is embarrassing. It is embarrassing what Kevin Durant has done to this team. It is an embarrassing absolute fall-off. Play with some pride, boys. You're playing with a team without their 2 best players. Like, I get Bron. Bron was mostly the third man on this team for most of the year. And I get it. Bron and Luke Kennard went at you. Are you kidding me? Is that a joke? They don't have Luka. They don't have Austin Reeves. There's maybe a chance KD plays, I don't know. But that shouldn't matter. This team looks nothing like the 2 seed they looked like last year, and that is just absurd. That is so sad and sickening. And I tell you, man, this is what Kevin Durant does. He is a sickness. He is a plague on teams. I don't care how great a shooter he is. He is a sickness and a plague every time he shows up. And somehow the only ones who had the Kevin Durant vaccine were the Golden State Warriors. But everybody else since then has just been, every team he goes to, he's just going to infect with his freakiness and his lame nonchalantness. Ugh. His wild calling Devin Booker Mussolini. Oh my gosh, it's absurd, and I won't stand for it. I won't stand for it, and it's ridiculous. I can't stand for it. I can't stand for it, and I won't. I think this Lakers team, and you know what? It's hilarious. I think this Lakers team wins. I think this Lakers team goes up 2-0, and I think the Rockets are in deep doo-doo. The crazy thing is, they're just better coached. JJ Redick was a better coach in that game than Ime Udoka. Better coach, and I think he'll be a better coach tonight. With that being said, that's all I have for you today. Episode 71 is in the books. I enjoyed today. Fun little primetime podcast, episode number 71. That was fun. That was a good one. I had to get a lot of talk about the Knicks. We had a bonus. We had a special guest appearance from Taff and Chat. So very good to see. Very good to see y'all as always pulling up. I appreciate you guys for tuning into these episodes. That is episode 71 in the books. I'm gonna go watch some TV with some friends. I'm also gonna probably crack open a drink, get myself some dinner, all that stuff. Hope y'all have a good night. I will see y'all Thursday to recap recap tonight's games, to recap Wednesday's games, to preview Thursday's games. Oh wait, Thursday's gonna be the draft. No, Thursday's draft episode. Forget the playoffs. We're gonna take a break from the playoffs for a second and get into the draft. That should be a fun one. So I'm excited for that. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share, and I will see y'all in the next one. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Have a good night.